This is the story of the country called Israel. Its beginning was very special and difficult. Some people think it was like a miracle because it happened against so many big problems. This book tells the story of a group of people. For a very long time, they were away from the place they called home. But they kept a dream in their hearts, to return and have a safe place for themselves. They wanted their own country after living in many different lands for many years. Making this dream real was a long journey in a difficult land. They built new farms and cities. They made a new army and brought back an old language. They had many successes in creating a new life and a strong country. But they also faced big problems and sad times, and some problems are still there now. This book looks at Israel's story from the first ideas to the country of today. It tries to show you why things happened, both the good things and the challenges. It is a story of hope, work, and many difficulties. 2. Early ideas and people. Life for many Jewish people in Europe was very difficult in the late 1800s. They faced hate and violence in many places. These hard times made some people sing sad songs about needing a home, but they also led to strong new ideas. A man named Theodor Herzl had a big idea. He was a writer in the city of Vienna. He saw how hard life was for Jewish people. He wrote a book called The Jewish State. In this book, he said that Jewish people needed their own country to be safe. He believed a Jewish state would help stop the problems they faced around the world. In 1897, Herzl helped organize a very important meeting in the city of Basel. People came from many different countries. This was the first Zionist Congress. At this meeting, they talked about Herzl's plan. They set a goal: to create a safe place for Jewish people in the land of Palestine, with the world's agreement. This idea was new in politics, but Jewish people had a very old connection to the land of Israel. Their holy book, the Bible, tells stories about this land from thousands of years ago. It speaks of a promise to a man named Abraham, and later of Jewish kings like David and Solomon who ruled there. They built a very important temple. But there were also sad times. The temple was destroyed, and Jewish people had to leave their land and live in many other places for a very, very long time. Even far away, they never forgot the land of Israel and the city of Jerusalem. They prayed facing Jerusalem every day. At special times like the Passover meal, they would say, "Next year in Jerusalem." This hope lived in their hearts for many centuries. This very old dream and Herzl's new political plan came together in the late 1800s. People started to think about how to make the dream of a Jewish home real again. 4. Early times in Palestine. After the early ideas were formed, Zionists had different thoughts about how to build a new home. A sad event in Europe in 1903, a pogrom in Kishinev, made the need feel more urgent. This led to big talks among the early leaders. One big idea caused much disagreement. This was the Uganda Plan. Britain offered land in Africa as a safe place for Jewish people. Some leaders thought it was a good temporary step, but many others said no strongly. For them, the home had to be in the land of Palestine, nowhere else. Important thinkers shared their ideas. Ahad Ha'am thought the new home should be a place for Jewish culture and spirit, not just a country. Zeev Jabotinsky believed Jewish people needed to be strong and build defenses in the land. A.D. Gordon felt that working with your hands on the land was the most important thing. Not everyone agreed about religion either. Some religious groups did not like Zionism at first. But another religious group, called Mizrahi, wanted to join Jewish tradition with the idea of a nation. Jewish people began to move to Palestine in groups. The first groups came starting in 1882. More groups came later, known as the First and Second Aliyot. These people started building a new life. A man named Eliezer ben Yehuda worked very hard to make Hebrew a spoken language again. Before this, people mostly used Hebrew for prayer and study. But Ben Yehuda helped people talk to each other every day in Hebrew. The new people built the first farms, called kibbutz. They also started the first modern Jewish city in 1909, called Tel Aviv. Building these places was hard work, but it was the start of making the dream real on the ground. 4. Big changes and a big war. World War I brought big changes. It made the Ottoman Empire weak. Zionists thought about who to support. Actions against Jews in Palestine by the Ottoman rulers pushed many Zionists towards the British side. A man named Chaim Weizmann was important. He was a scientist and helped the British in the war. This helped him talk to important British leaders. He worked hard to get their support for a Jewish homeland in Palestine. In 1917, a major event happened. The British government made the Balfour Declaration. This was a letter from Arthur Balfour to Lord Walter Rothschild. It said that Britain looked kindly on the idea of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. This was a big promise and a great success for the Zionist movement, even though it did not promise a state directly. Soon after, British soldiers took control of Palestine. This began the time of the British Mandate. More Jewish people came to live in Palestine. This immigration was called the Third Aliyah. The Jewish community, called the Yeshuv, started building more things. They created groups for self-defense, like the Haganah. But more Jewish people coming made the Arab population angry. This anger grew and led to fighting and protests called the Arab Revolt between 1936 and 1939. During the 1930s, dark clouds appeared in Europe. Adolf Hitler came to power in Germany. The situation for Jews in Europe became very dangerous. More Jews wanted to escape and come to Palestine. This was the fifth Aliyah. But Britain started changing its policy. In 1937, a British group called the Peel Commission suggested dividing the land for Jews and Arabs. Zionist leaders mostly accepted this plan, but Arab leaders said no. Then, in 1939, Britain made the White Paper. This document put strong limits on how many Jewish people could enter Palestine. It also limited buying land. This was a very bad time for this rule, as Jews in Europe needed a safe place more than ever. It felt like Britain went back on its promise. As World War II began, Jews in Palestine faced a difficult choice. Their leader, David Ben-Gurion, spoke of fighting two things at once. They would fight with the British Army against Hitler because he was a great danger. But they would also fight against the British rules from the White Paper that stopped Jews from coming to Palestine. People organized secret ways for Jews to come by boat, but many boats were stopped by the British. Despite the danger and the British limits, the dream of a Jewish country became stronger. In 1942, Zionist leaders clearly stated their goal was a Jewish state. 5. A new country is born. After the end of World War II, the terrible things that happened to Jewish people in the Holocaust made the need for a safe home very clear. In Palestine, Jewish people felt it was very urgent to have their own country. They continued to fight against the British, who still controlled the land and limited Jewish people coming in. Groups like the Irgun and Lechi used force against British targets, making the British situation very difficult. In 1947, the British decided to give the problem to the United Nations. The United Nations then looked at the situation closely. On November 29, 1947, the UN General Assembly voted on a plan. This plan, Resolution 181, suggested dividing Palestine into two states, one Jewish state and one Arab state. The important city of Jerusalem would be special and governed internationally. Most Jewish leaders in Palestine said yes to this UN plan. They were happy to have the chance to build their own state, even in a smaller area. But the Arab leaders said no. They did not agree with the idea of dividing the land and creating a Jewish state. Right after the UN vote, fighting started immediately. This was the beginning of the War of Independence. Local Arab forces attacked Jewish areas. The British were getting ready to leave and did not stop the fighting effectively. On May 14, 1948, the British officially left Palestine. On that same day, David Ben-Gurion, head of the Jewish National Council, announced a very important thing in Tel Aviv. He read the Declaration of Independence in a ceremony. The State of Israel was officially born, fulfilling a long dream. The very next day, the situation became much more dangerous. The armies of 5 Arab countries, Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq invaded the new state of Israel. Their goal was to stop the creation of the Jewish state. The war became a fight for survival for the new country. There was very hard fighting in many places across the land. Many people died, both soldiers and civilians. The battle for the city of Jerusalem was especially difficult, with significant losses on both sides. Against many problems, the Israeli forces, the Haganah and others, fought bravely to defend the new state. By 1949, fighting stopped with armistice agreements signed with the Arab countries. Israel won the war, keeping its existence and securing its borders, though the exact lines were different from the UN plan. The war ended, but it created new, deep problems. Many Palestinian Arabs who lived in the areas that became Israel left or were forced to leave their homes during the fighting. They became refugees, and this event is known as the Nakba, or catastrophe by Palestinians. A new country was born, but the path ahead was still full of conflict and challenges. 6. Building a new nation. After the war, the new country of Israel faced big problems. One of the biggest was bringing in many Jewish people who had no home. The law of return was made in 1950. It said any Jewish person could come to Israel and become a citizen right away. Many came from Europe after the terrible Holocaust. Many also came from countries in the Middle East and North Africa, like Yemen and Iraq, where life was becoming hard for them. Airplanes brought people in big groups, like Operation Magic Carpet for Yemenite Jews. So many people arrived so fast that there were not enough homes or jobs. Many families had to live in temporary camps called ma'abarot. They lived in tents or small huts, sometimes for years. Building new towns and proper homes took time and a lot of hard work. This large immigration changed Israel and sometimes caused problems between groups from different places. David Ben-Gurion was the first prime minister. He led the new government and wanted everyone to feel part of one strong country. He made important choices about how the country would be run, wanting the state to be the main power. Israel also had problems on its borders. Groups called Fedayeen, often from nearby countries, sometimes crossed into Israel and attacked people in farms or villages. The army started sending soldiers to respond across the border to stop these attacks. In 1956, there was a short war, the Sinai War. The leader of Egypt, Gamal Abdel Nasser, was getting strong weapons from countries like Czechoslovakia. He also blocked ships going to Israel through the Straits of Tiran and took control of the Suez Canal. Israel made a plan with Britain and France, who were also angry at Nasser. Israeli forces went into the Sinai Desert quickly. They won battles fast. But other big countries, the United States and the Soviet Union, did not like this war and told everyone to stop. Israel pulled its soldiers back from Sinai, but the border with Egypt became much quieter for about 10 years. The young country also had to remember the terrible things that happened during the Holocaust. In 1960, a man named Adolf Eichmann was caught in another country. He was very important in planning the killing of Jews in Europe. He was brought to Jerusalem for a big trial in 1961. Many people around the world watched the trial on television. Survivors of the Holocaust came and told their sad and difficult stories. This trial helped Israelis, especially young people born in the country, learn and understand more about what happened to Jewish people in Europe. Before this, there were also hard talks about getting money from Germany for the terrible things that happened, called reparations. Another trial about a man named Kostner also made people talk about the difficult choices people had to make during the Holocaust. These were difficult ways the country dealt with its sad past while trying hard to build a future for everyone. 7. Wars and Hopes for Peace. The year 1967 brought a big change. Israel fought a short war, just 6 days, and won quickly against Egypt, Jordan, and Syria. This victory was surprising and important. Israel took control of new areas: East Jerusalem, the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, the Sinai Peninsula, and the Golan Heights. Living with control over these areas and the Palestinian people there became a new challenge. This time also saw the start of the settler movement, as some Israelis began to build homes in these new territories, which created new questions and problems. Just a few years later, in 1973, Israel was surprised again. On the Jewish holy day of Yom Kippur, Egypt and Syria started a sudden war. The fighting was very hard, and many people died on both sides. This war was a shock for Israel. In 1977, there was a big change in politics. The Likud party, led by Menachem Begin, won the election. This was the first time that the Labour Party was not in power. A big moment of hope came when the President of Egypt, Anwar Sadat, made a brave visit to Jerusalem. After hard talks, Israel and Egypt signed a peace treaty. This was the first peace agreement between Israel and an Arab country. However, peace did not last everywhere. In 1982, Israel went to war in Lebanon. Later, in 1987, Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza started an uprising against Israeli control. This was called the First Intifada. In 1993, there was new hope for peace. Israeli leaders and Palestinian leaders signed the Oslo Accords. This agreement was meant to bring a path to peace and create some self-rule for Palestinians. But after the agreement, there was more violence, including suicide bombings against Israelis. This made many people lose hope. Then, in 1995, something very sad happened. Israel's Prime Minister, Yitzhak Rabin, who signed the Oslo Accords, was killed by an Israeli person who was against the peace process. This was a very difficult time for the country. The peace process failed, and in 2000, a second, more violent Palestinian uprising began. It was called the Second Intifada. To stop the attacks, Israel started to build a large barrier. In 2005, Israel decided to remove all its soldiers and settlers from the Gaza Strip. But problems continued, and in 2006, Israel fought another war with Hezbollah in Lebanon. 8. Looking at today and tomorrow. Today, life in Israel shows interesting things about its culture and traditions. Many Israelis are finding new interest in Jewish traditions and learning. You can see this in popular music that uses old religious songs or ideas. Books about Jewish thought are read by many people. New places for learning, sometimes for adults, help people connect with Jewish history and texts. This is like a new Jewish life growing inside the country. But not everything is easy. There are sometimes problems and disagreements between different religious groups and people with different ideas about how the country should be. This causes arguments in politics. Israel is also famous across the world for being very good at new technology. People call it a startup nation because many new tech companies begin here. These companies create new things in computers, medicine, and other areas. This high-tech work is a very important part of Israel's economy and helps the country grow. However, Israel continues to live in a difficult neighborhood. It has ongoing problems with some nearby countries and complex relationships with many countries far away. Peace is not easy to find. It has now been more than 70 years since the State of Israel was born. When people look back, they remember how hard it was at the start. They also see the big successes. The Hebrew language, which was only written for a long time, is now spoken by everyone. Israel built a system of government where people vote, like a democracy. But big questions are still there, especially about how to live peacefully with the Palestinians and what the future will be like for everyone in the region. Israel's story is about achieving great things and building a strong country even when facing many dangers. It is a story that is still happening every day. What do you think is the biggest challenge for Israel today?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.